Okay, I think we can start. Yeah, if you have a few more stragglers, great. If not, that's all right. Appreciate everyone coming out. You know, the rules of health seem to change with each generation, and underneath it all, there are essentials that if you know, you can navigate the fashions that come and go. You know, low fat, low carb, high carb. What are we talking about? More protein, less protein. There, there is 10 years of effort that I've put in with trying to figure out where do I start when people come to me. And what this is the distilled down version of no matter what we are there to address, I have to come back to these 4 topics. So it's not like mindset isn't a thing, but no mindset will get you on track if you don't have the basics, the essentials for you to build off of. So what are those 4 essentials here that hopefully you can take and run with so you know these are a non-negotiable? One is a daily detox. It looks different for everybody. I'll tell you the basic one. Fasting feeding, this is all the biology we need to know day to day in order to make sure that we can master metabolism. We need to eat food that's alive. Very simple. You'll see it as soon as you see the image. And the one thing you can decide how well you age is how you adapt to the exercise that you take part in. And then at the end, I think everyone's in the WhatsApp group, just how you can share and put your goals out there so that it can help motivate others to know what you're doing, to know what they could put effort in on, and a way we can start sharing some of our own experiences with how we're taking command of what you've been given. Okay? We start always with the gut. In the 1950s, that was the question. Did you go today? And if you didn't, that was a problem. And it's pretty simple. If stool sits in there, you reabsorb it. And so you got to keep moving, and especially when you do things like, well, I'm going to fast. You still got to support and make sure you're still having that movement, even when the days when you're trying to clean out your system. So no matter what you put into your stomach, it's going to signal to your intestines to get moving. The water is good enough, but obviously when we need a little bit of help, there's other things we can turn to. So the 2 things to always turn to, no matter what, it's something that's a mucilage or they're carminative, something that help move the system forward. So my favorite mucilage is slippery elm. So whether it's just to help rebalance the gut or whether it's to fully repair it, it's there to coat the intestines, make it so you have a regular movement. The second part is dill, ginger. These are the things that are a must with food. No one really talks about it, but without it, it makes digestion slow. And slow digestion is going to be one of the biggest hurdles to longevity. So we need to know what are we really doing with each of our actions. Like where are we within the need to support the gut, the movement? The daily detox, that's us on a regular daily basis. If we're constantly having gas, irregular movements, they're not timed well, it's very likely we need to fix up the bugs in the gut. And for that, we're looking for prebiotics, we're looking for those carminatives, we're looking for some regularity. There are obviously a lot of things we can go towards to try and address that. But the big thing here that we're going to talk about, and I would really like to stress for you to take home this as the pocket of knowledge from this, is that when we need to repair the gut, when we need to go down and deep, great timing, just have a seat anywhere, is that we need to be able to recognize whether, is it just our gut lining or do we have deeper issues? And your symptoms tell you. If you're getting acne constantly, that's likely that there's a barrier in the gut. If you're having a lot more skin issues, it's likely it's gone deeper. So this idea is very simple, but it can get very, very complicated very quickly. So the simple idea is that we're going to have blood vessels. They're the ones that have to support to do the cleaning. Now, if that goes deeper into the surrounding connective tissue, the collagen, the goo, the jelly stuff, that's going deeper and deeper into the problem. And then the cells at the end, that's not that big a deal. They're constantly changing out. So I put this little stem cell here because just to be able to throw in this little curveball for aging. The biggest impact to aging is if the supportive structure, that connective tissue, that goo, what the Greeks knew as the life force 2,000 years ago, if that gets damaged, then that cell at the bottom can't do its job. And then we're going to have issues further down the line. We're accelerating aging. So every time we're thinking, okay, I have a big issue, how do I clean this up? Well, you got to clean it up with the blood you have. So if the blood's not clean, we're not going to be able to support repairing the lining. We're not going to be able to support healing that goo that's bathing everything. And that goo is really what's holding the magic sauce. So in that part of that goo is where we have the brain of the gut. Is it a real brain? It is a real brain, right? Because if you disconnect it from the rest of the nervous system, it still functions. It still receives a signal, and it'll still act to do its job. So it is a real gut in there, and it is established now that if the gut leaks, that means your brain's leaking. That means the brain fog, the fatigue, the slow, constantly being lethargic, they're not separate. And so you know this very quickly if this is the issue. And if it's the issue, we're looking towards, hey, we need to support not just the bugs, we're not in daily maintenance, we're in that deep state of repair where we have to spend a lot more effort, a lot more targeted approach in order to get back to a place where we make sure that we're aging well, that we're not damaging that little stem cell niche. So the nervous system they talk to one another. If you're stressed out, there's going to be a problem. So it's a kind of a weird conundrum that they put themselves in the 1950s, where you constantly ask the other person, you just stress them out. So now that guy didn't go today, oh man, it's going to be bad, and I'm going to have to go see a doctor, he's going to give me stuff. So there is an aspect of being able to just, it's okay, you just kind of go with it, and you bring in what you need as support. It's a very, very simple idea, but whatever you put in your mouth, it has to traffic through the blood supply to the liver. And the liver has to decide, am I taking the blood from the gut, or am I cleaning the blood from the rest of the body? And it's a competition constantly. The more that you send food towards the liver, the less you can clean your blood. And so the more that you delay the inevitable of cleaning your blood, it eventually spills over into your blood and into your lymphatic system. When it spills over into your lymphatic system, well, then you have a hyperreactive immune system. You're allergic to everything. So here's the exact same idea. It spills into blood, into connective tissue, and eventually into the cell. And so if the cell changes, it's going to take a lot longer for you to be able to get that back to good standings. Think of pH. It's going to take a while for that pH to change. Even if you change the pH in your blood, hey, doctor, I'm eating an alkaline diet for the last 2 weeks. Why isn't my issue solved? Because it takes a while for this to be able to trickle to the cell, or for the cell exchange with what it needs with the liver. So, we see this often where someone's going to take the easy route. Oh, the doctor told me I have an allergy. I've heard I'm allergic to the sun. I'm allergic to carbohydrates. I'm allergic to you name it. This is not an allergy. You can't be allergic to the sun. We've lost the definition of allergy a long time ago. And there is real allergies. They used to be what the medicines say, I'm born with this, and if I see it, my immune system goes haywire. Why that's the case, I couldn't tell you. It's pretty complicated outside of what we know as the scientific community. But these aren't allergies, right? You know it's a sensitivity because once the person who's allergic to the sun, a general liver support protocol, okay, he's no longer getting rashes just by going outside. So taking that idea where, okay, there's a problem, the first place almost always to turn is how clean your blood is. This has been my approach to it. If you clean out the blood, does the problem go away? Oh, it does? Oh, thank God. And that works for about 70 to 90% of the issues. 10% it can be hyper-specialized, ear, eyes, maybe there's some kind of sensory component. So what are the do's here? I put this as the basics. It's safe for anybody, how you approach it. And these are also your fasting compounds that aren't going to break your fast. So lemon and a pinch of cayenne. So the lemon is going to help take the stuff from the liver into the colon so you eliminate it. And you'll notice how when you have lemon, you don't want to go to the bathroom. Also helps suppress appetite. So even when you have longer fasts, you can go ahead, you can use that lemon. The cayenne pepper acts like a blood stimulant. It makes the system go, heat it up, and get going. The slippery elm, that's one of the best coatings that you can use to even repair. It's not just a help move things along. it will act to repair those cells. So if there's damage, it'll sew them back up. Now, it's not going to do the heavy lifting of if the connective tissue that underneath is damaged. It can't lift it out. It can't support it that much. So we need to bring in other things to be able to do that. Now, turmeric is an anti-inflammatory, but if you just take turmeric in tea, you're not going to absorb much of it, but it is an excellent anti-parasitic or just helping rebalance the gut microbes. So you don't absorb it, but you use it for a different reason. And then my favorite one to help you move is fennel tea. It has a lot of things in it. It has next to no calories, supports the liver, but it gets your colon moving. So this is the way that the human being is guaranteed to design to be lit, that we were designed to live. You're designed to have periods of not eating and eating. And you're designed to have a lot longer periods of not eating than what we're accustomed to today. I would argue that the need to eat all the time actually just makes you slower, weaker, more of a liability. Hey, we're going to go fishing. Oh, I can't. I got to eat 3 times, in a day. I can't even get you out to the backcountry for us to fish. You're going to miss out. Hopefully that makes sense. But in this idea of feast and famine, your mornings and your activities, they're set up so that the hunger usually comes around, I'm going to say 12 o'clock naturally. Now, it obviously depends on your lifestyle and what you do. So I say the generic lifestyle, the default, which isn't really fasting, is just you eat 2 meals in a day. And that's plenty. So if you have it at 10 and 6, it splits it up very simply of this idyllic 16 hours of no food and 8 hours of food. And it takes a little bit of time to digest. So about 4 hours once you consume anything for your body to process it. It'll go back to now allowing to clean your blood. You have another meal. It takes about 3 or 4 hours to process it. So if we eat very late, you're delaying your liver regenerating. It likes to start working around 10 to 2. So intermittent fasting, it's a fad. It's fashion. It's great that we're having the conversation, that it's gotten out there. This is default physiology. So as we go into the default physiology, what is it so important to have this type of lifestyle? It's this big idea called metabolic flexibility. You're going to switch what resources you're going to use. And down here, just a very, hopefully simple and not too complicated. The red is the blood being cleaned. When you eat food, that goes off. And if you have any food that doesn't have an insulin response, very low insulin, so we're talking fat, protein, then your body continues producing a fat product called a ketone. Now, we don't care about the energy the ketone can give us. It's not what we want the ketone for. We want the ketone because it acts like a signal. It says, hi, turn on brain protection. Hi, turn on heart protection. And what it does, it tells the gene transcription to make reinforcements for your membranes. So just having that metabolite present in your blood allows you to live longer. If you need to heal any system, no matter what system, it's extremely hard to heal it in this region where you're asking insulin to function. Insulin is times are good, it's a growth hormone. It's the most potent growth hormone that you see on a regular basis. So controlling insulin is about 90% of today's challenge because the majority of foods that we're accessible to, very high refined carbohydrates or easy source carbohydrates, muffins, croissants, you name it. So knowing that, hey, I'm going to eat 2 meals, if one of those meals is low, not in carbohydrates, but in insulin response. And we'll kind of have to wave that under the rug because it's another topic altogether. But this is the big take home that we would like every single day for you to enter your body producing ketones because they are a key molecule to keep you alive. So just a graph to say that the ketone is that butyrate there. And you can see that in around 5 days, if you have no food, your amino acids will go up, fat goes up, and glucose comes down. Now, if we keep going with the glucose, it actually comes back up. But at around day 3 is where we have to make the decision of, is that right for you or not? Because like I said before, remember, what's in your blood has to clean your tissues. But if you've never done a fast, if you've 40 years out, like one of these guys in the back that's never taken care of themselves, your blood will have the contents from days 1, 2, and 3. And then trying to go further, it's not advised because it is now just dirty blood. You have to let that exit your body in order to start doing this process again. So in the craziness of the case studies and the examples I can share with you, there is a gentleman who, in his late 60s, decided he's going to start doing longer and longer fasts. After a 14-day fast, what they found in his urine was drugs he took 40 years ago. So this is how long some of this stuff can stay in your system. And when you start fasting, it allows your body to eliminate it. So again, 3 days, safe for anybody. You can make 3 days without food, no problem. Going later, then it starts becoming a little bit more, hey, let's put some effort behind what you're doing. So your blood chemistry changes, and you can do this obviously through a few different ways. He was taking, I think, very specific medication for his kidneys. Yeah, and maybe not the best medication. So here we have just very important idea here, just to kind of showcase how your rhythm changes. Your body makes growth hormone. It's a survival signal. It tells your cells stay alive. So if you inject growth hormone, you can live a little bit longer. But I wouldn't advise that. There's other consequences. You would like your body to produce the growth hormone, because then the signal to hear it is a lot better than if you're to just, hit me. So if you see it, and then every single day, we're going to produce it when we wake up, and right before our bedtime, we're producing growth hormone. But just one day of fasting, you have 2 extra spikes that you'll produce growth hormone. That's good. You're going to make it longer. And each one of your cells gets a chance to rejuvenate. But if you make it to 5 days, now there's just almost a constant release of growth hormone throughout your system, saying, hey, tune up our efficiency, make sure we clean out all the cells that aren't serving us, all the junk cells that we could do without, replenish them with good cells. And so tons of experiments have been done where a person's restricted. They think we're going to torture him, we're going to give him just some vegetarian food, lock him in jail. This person becomes shredded, super focused, and hyper intelligent. So, we learned a lot, because 5 days might sound a lot, but once you're comfortable with going 3 days without food, 5 to 7 makes no difference. So there's lots of benefits of fasting, which is kind of a crazy thing to say.
So when you say like no food, that means no food.
No water, yes, no calories. And we'll get to that idea of what are calories. So it's nothing that's going to cause your metabolism to shift into processing nutrients. Yep. Salt's okay, lemon's okay, fennel will be still all right. Those things, like the supportive ones, no problem. So I caution, and I'll say this, there's fashions in science, right? There's this, yeah. Nicotine is a stimulant, so it acts differently across long-term fasts. So it's not the same. Yeah. Fashions in science. So we say, look at the benefits of fasting. But isn't that a ridiculous thing to say out loud? That we're trying to say, hey, listen, if you don't have anything, look at the benefits. Isn't that default, to not have anything? It's almost as if our culture is somehow persuaded that if you don't have food, you're going to drop dead tomorrow. And I think there's this ingrained idea that we're that feeble. And so it's a fashion, because the word fasting has gotten to a certain point where it's like, well, this is going to break my fast. And I don't know what people mean when they say that. What are you fasting from? Why are you fasting? What's the purpose? Is it to just produce ketones? That's a good reason to understand why you're fasting. Is it to try and clear out, let's say, more of what's going in your system because you haven't done a 3-day fast your entire life? Okay, you're doing it for that. You want to abstain from most things. And this idea of fasting, it's great, but the concept we can step to next, this idea of metabolic load. So a few people, I've recommended to, you can take chia in the evening. They're like, well, that's got calories, and then it's going to break my fast. Yeah, a tablespoon of chia has about 70 calories, but the metabolic load's tiny. There's no insulin. There's metabolic. It's got tons of magnesium. So how your body processes it is not the same as if you're going to eat an egg. Even 70 grams of egg, white egg yolk. Very different. So this idea of metabolic load, it is complicated, but that's just that simple. How heavy is it? A lot or little? Little? Okay, good. I can have it. Is it providing a particular effect? Yeah, chia is going to give you tons of magnesium. You can pay $40 for your calm and take your powder, or you can take a tablespoon of chia and you're going to get 3 times magnesium in there, as well as some nice omegas. So it's something that comes in every generation of how we present science. And so very simple, when you want to eat, there's 3 reasons why you're eating. All psychological reasons aside, or obviously we eat for festivities. We're talking metabolically here, we're going in with the essentials. So you eat for, number 1, energy. That's the one that's talked about almost exclusively. For number two, especially when you're growing and you have a little kid, you want to provide them with the best, highest quality food because that's going to be their literal structure. That's going to be their brain, that's going to be their heart, that's going to be organs that don't turn over. Yes, they'll eventually produce new proteins and new fats, but they might take months and months and months to do that reparative process, and you have to facilitate it through the ketones and everything else. So structure, that's what your brain's made of. Those are the omegas. And then the one that's most important, this is actually what we eat for, is to control our body. So here is what metabolism is. So inside of a cell, this is what happens. And this is a little bit of what I think about in a day, just this fraction of what goes on through my head. But I show this just because here's the aspect of energy. And everything else there is structure or regulation. So when you eat something that's alive, you have everything that goes on maintained in this process. Remember, every molecule has time it's going to degrade. It's called a half-life. And so the moment that food is killed or attempted to be processed, all of the molecules that hold life in it are degrading. You have to catch it in time. So very simple. There you go. There's something that's alive. It has a metabolism underneath. If you put it through fancy machines to give it readouts, you'll see that there's lots of different molecules. But if you process this, now process isn't the best word because you can do a good job processing something and hold a lot of nutrition. But you know what I'm trying to say. If you do it where you preserve the food, where you nuke the food, you're going to have nothing. So microwaving is gonna move water molecules very quickly, and a lot of molecules are very sensitive. Fats are extremely sensitive. So sometimes when you heat food in the microwave, I don't think the fats come out the same. And you can tell by the taste in the food. Lots of anything that's to do with an antioxidant is going to get nuked. The antioxidants don't function. And I know there's a lot of attempt to say this doesn't happen in a microwave, but it's pretty obvious, and you can dig through the experiments. There's reasons why there's not widely published. But if you know basic, chemistry, there's no real, there's no discussion. If you try to preserve it in a little tube where you're responsible, make sure my antioxidant doesn't get oxidized, you're going through a lot of effort, right? So you nuking it in the microwave will definitely be, it'll be gone. So this is the simplest idea. This is the biggest idea. If anyone's trying to heal from a massive disease, you need to eat 80% alive, 20% preserved. So pasta, those kind of foods. The more you can push to live foods, the better it will be for your recovery. So everything has a way to prep it, and I use just broccoli as an example. If you eat broccoli just straight up, and if you chew it, you'll get a little bit of the good stuff from it. If you heat it instantly, you're going to destroy the good stuff and you're just getting fiber. If you chop it up, you're going to do a process where it's allowed to have the reaction occur, and you're going to get the good stuff out of it. What's the good stuff? It's a compound called sulforaphane. It's the anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory. It's like the super molecule in broccoli. And it works because there's an enzyme. So if you destroy the enzyme by heating it, it's okay. You can find that enzyme in mustard powder and wasabi. You can put that back in, and that enzyme can do the reaction and convert what's in the broccoli to give you this super molecule called sulforaphane. This is an example of everything requires some type of very precise understanding in order for you to get the nutrition out of it. Yes, actually.
So when you said direct heat, you meant like heat the whole like head of broccoli?
If you steam it, put it on your
But
pan.
if you chop it and steam it?
Chop it, wait 40 minutes, it's fine because you chopped it up, that enzyme activates sulforaphane, and sulforaphane is very heat stable.
Okay.
Yeah.
But direct, like, cook it immediately?
Cook it immediately, it's going to destroy that enzyme called myrinase, and then you can reintroduce that enzyme with mustard powder. So it's about the enzymatic reaction. I try not to have too much jargon in there, as there's a lot to keep in mind. When I would like the big ideas to stay here, these big ideas will carry you for a lifetime. They help people get back from the worst states where their body's out in rashes, and even from, call it the most debilitating diseases. So we talk about calories that are in our packaging. They're not real. There's no such thing as a calorie. This is where calories come from. You throw stuff in a bomb calorimeter, and you turn it to ash, and you decide how many calories that are there. So fingernails, wax, all of that has calories. You're not getting nutrition out of it. Now you'd be like, of course, it's only out of food, but how much food do you digest actually? How do you know if something has 100 calories that your genetic makeup gets 100 calories out of it? And it's not the same. Apple or chocolate bar might have 100 calories because why? Structure, control, regulation. That's really the conversation. So calories are a good concept just as an intro. I'll still say them out loud to people and we'll still use them. Understanding that really they're talking about macronutrients, get to here as quickly as possible. And we're really just talking about two. We're talking about fat, we're talking about carbohydrates. Protein, this is the simple thing. You want to lose weight without losing muscle. You just eat protein. Protein doesn't go as an energy source very well. You can use it in very rare cases or extreme cases, but we have fats and carbohydrates. They're going to enter that energy cycle. And we saw where that energy cycle was in all of the metabolism. So that's a big thing to keep as far as what we need to know about nutrition. If you want to have nutrition, that's all you know. Eat food that's alive. Know what macronutrients you have. I'm eating carbs. Does it spike my insulin or not? I'm eating fats. Are they loaded with omegas or not? So how are you spending energy? If you contract and use your muscles, they'll produce drugs for the rest of your body. Okay, they go into your bloodstream and they support every organ. And this is what I did when I did the doctorate. I looked at what does your muscle produce, and if I know the concentration, can I predict whether you will be protected from a condition or not, or do you have superior health than another person? And the answer is yes. So if we know concentrations of the muscle molecules, we know whether you're going to live long or we know whether you're going to be more resilient to conditions. So very easy, very simple, but what are you doing? You know, how are you getting there? If you lay down, you'll wither away. If you sit, that's kind of good enough. You're already going to start using muscles. You can actually do work by sitting. You're not going to wither away. And then you're walking, you're doing all the rest of the movements. The idea of the three postures is that how you stand, you're going to feel your muscles tense in some way or form. Those tensions are your guide to what exercises you should be doing. Okay, so those are the big ideas. You have three postures. When you lay down, you'll feel where your legs, hips, shoulders pull. When you sit, you'll feel where your hips, legs, shoulders, neck pulls. Therefore, you'll know what exercises you'd want to do because in principle, it's very simple. Muscles only contract. In order for it to relax, another muscle must contract. And we really have two very complicated joints. It's just the shoulders and the hips. The hips are a little bit more complicated because they have to keep us on the ground in contact the whole time. So every time you use it, you're going to deplete your battery, but because you used it, it gets to be charged higher. You get a bigger capacity to be able to use for metabolism because they'll produce drugs for your body. And that's a good thing. So muscles are good. We all love muscles. Everyone loves muscles. And so the only, unfortunately covered there, the only principle that the muscle really follows is that there's antagonism. You can go to your physio, you can get personal trainers, but all you need to know to be able to figure out how to exercise, what to do, is you have to understand that no matter what movement you do, the opposite movement, there is another set of muscles. And if you have pains, it's probably to work on the opposite side of where your pain is. So if pain's in the front of the shoulder, you probably want to work on the back, the scapula, bring that so it's not as protracted, and you're going to see how the pain goes away. If there's pain and you constantly keep pressing, trying to massage the pain, that's not solving the issue. The issue is the weak muscles that aren't able to offset probably the overactive muscle. And that's the oversimplified one, but that's really how to guide where you should be doing your exercises. And the exercises are super simple. Either you're focusing on volume, focusing on resistance, or you're focusing on speed. This is the triangle of training. This is what my brother introduced me. And after thousands of hours in exercise physiology, I'll tell you, no one's come up with anything better. You can complicate this as much as you want, but no matter what you do, your actions are going to fall somewhere within that triangle. And if you know your actions are going to fall somewhere in that triangle, you're going to know how you're going to adapt. And this is your targets for life. If you do them, you're kind of set. The hardest one, I think, is building out a cardiovascular system. It's just brutal training. You have to keep your heart rate up, and you have to change pace so that you go up and it goes down. Because just running at a very steady, easy pace, you're not going to break this idea of a threshold. You're not going to get an adaptation, and your lung capacity stays relatively the same. That's great. You're getting some exercise. Your muscles are moving. That's not a bad thing. But you'd like for your lung capacity to be very good at pulling in oxygen. And once you do that, it is the best predictor that you will survive from anything. Fall out of an airplane, this is the best predictor. Get hit by a car crash or lightning, this is the best predictor. And all the other stuff that comes from the medical world. The neural drive, very simple. If you're very good at movements, tennis and other stuff, your body has to protect your joints so that you're not breaking from force. But if you really take a movement that's not really dynamic, this is not something you do in real life, like the bodybuilders, you get the maximum recruitment that you possibly can from your nervous system. And the adaptation long term is that your nervous system has a capacity that takes a really long time to degrade. So if you build it out, 50, 60, 70, 80, it's going to go down by, we'll call it 10 points. And as soon as you cross a threshold, there's no coming back. And that's frailty. That becomes a very tough life. But if you start at a very high number in your 30s, 40s, 50s, it doesn't matter. You just never hit that. Other systems fail before you hit the frailty line. And the last one, this is a cheat code. This is the idea of efficiency, but it's a lot more complicated. It's this idea of how good your nervous system is with your muscle. And I'll share this with you as far as the take home. Your nerve is massive. It goes from your spinal cord all the way out to wherever it has to innervate. But there's blood vessels touching it all along the way. So if you're doing movements where you're not as strong, well, your body has to make sure it doesn't rip those blood vessels from the nerve. As you get more and more adapted, so that connective tissue, that jelly that supports your stem cells, the fascia, the gooey stuff, that becomes super efficient at protecting those very fine connections. And that is one of the most, let's say, telling things of someone in age. It's also one of the first things that we lose. So the more you can maintain this on a regular basis, the better you off are. It's how slimy, how slippery you are. So, I think everyone here is in the group. Here is something very easy that you can do to share within that BioCommand channel. And I'll repost it again here, so for the full group has it, is we have a morning detox protocol. I know some people are in Amla, some people take Triphala, some people do the lemon. Everyone might have something specific what's going on. Know it and just say, hey, this is what I'm trying for right now. If you want to give a rationale, that's great. If you're not on this 1 to 2 meals idea, I would get you to try and shift there and just say when your window is. Sometimes people have a hard schedule and they do eat very late, or they might have shift work. And this is where we can kind of share to what's happening and what's working for us. The other thing is that you've adapted to some extent. Share your resting heart rate, share your max heart rate, share how you got that. And once you get to your max heart rate, I'm about 100 or 210. How long does it take for that 210 to come down to 18, 15, and 12 mark? So I say 18 because on 6 seconds, if it's 18, you add a 0, you're at 180. On 6 seconds, if it's 21, you're at 200 or you're 210. So very simple to take your heart rate on 6 seconds, and you know where you're at. So that heart rate recovery, it tells us a lot. If you can bring your heart rate up to 210, that'd be very impressive if you can. But it takes you 5-6 minutes to recover. Don't do that very often. Don't work in that zone. And then we started this week with the herbals. You only have so much time to consume something in a day. So find out what your companion herbals are. Whether it's chamomile, whether it's valerian, whether it's nettle. I drink nettle because I had a lot of lung. I had asthma as a child. So nettle to me still this day does very well to keep me up healthy, protected, and not sick. Do I need other things? Possibly, but that's the one I know for sure I go to on a regular day basis without having to think. Chamomile is also good too, and chia. So it's something very easy you can practically take and ship. And that's it. Those are the essentials. Thanks, guys, for coming and supporting. Okay, I think we got some footage. Yes, is there any questions?
You said your heart rate goes to 210. What should our heart rate be?
And so that was with swimming. It all depends on your background. Probably Slav is like 250, 260, right, champ? It all depends on the individual, right? And as you age, it'll come up less and less. So, biking, rowing, swimming, it's not easy to push yourself up to your max either if you've never done that before. So working up to it, having an idea is something that you have as a back pocket, which, if you're working with the high-end let's say, prestige of functional clinics or people that are tracking and trying to keep you alive as best you can, they like stuff like that. It's not, call it flat, static information. It's dynamic. It's how you're responding to life, and it's a lot better metric than something else. So the recovery of the heart rate to the baseline, how long should it take? We want to know at the zone. So 18, 15, and 12 would be like high, when you're coming out of the high zone, when you're through the moderate zone, and when you're back in, call it like I can go again. Because we know that high zone is that lactate threshold. We've switched resources in terms of glycogen to oxidation, that type of stuff. So we want to know 18, 15, 12.
Like
Yep.
typically, how long should it take to make that journey down?
If you're an Olympic athlete, let's say an endurance sport, it should take you somewhere about 30 seconds to come back down out of that sprinting zone. It should take you about a minute to come back into 12, like I'm ready to go again. But it obviously depends on who you are within the call it the team. The big heavy guys, like in water polo, you have the guy who sits in the center. In hockey, you have the guys that kind of shove out. They're the kind of the reinforcers. They'll take a little longer to come back in that low zone, but they're pretty good at going from that middle zone back into sprinting and whatnot. But they're usually. It might take you somewhere to get you, like, realistically 2 to 3 minutes to get back in the hey, I'm in 12, if not longer, depending on how hard you push yourself, and because you're not there often. So it's like inversely correlated to BMI. Not necessarily, because you can get pretty heavy. Some of those, call it like off-season athletes, can get pretty big. Kevin? Yeah, going back to the lemon and turmeric stuff, kind of reminds me a bit of Ayurveda. Do you believe in that? Do you think there's any merit to it? I pretty much take from Ayurveda as a way in how to approach health, and their approaches worked for thousands of years, and it's very backed with, when I say take a step back from the Western science, when you take the fashion out, you can see that they are in line with it. Ketones. If you read about ketones, they were a starvation molecule up until like 2 decades ago. Everything you published on it was starvation molecule, starvation molecule. But it's not. It's just how people wanted to get your attention.